Hey guys, in this video I'm just going to show you how to multiply and divide surds, and there's just a couple of rules that you need to become familiar with. The first one being, if I multiply two surds, and it doesn't matter if they're like surds or not, they can be completely different numbers, we can still multiply them. So if we have the square root of some number multiplied by the square root of a different number, it's the same as writing it as the square root of those two numbers multiplied together. Now sometimes you will have coefficients in front of those two surds. Now the way that I do it is, the first thing I do is I multiply your two coefficients. So I would multiply the AB together. So A times B gives you AB. And then you just multiply the two numbers under the square root like you did in the last one. So square root of x times square root of y is the square root of x times y again. Now division's exactly the same, except you're just going to be dividing them. So if you have the square root of some number divided by the square root of a different number, all you need to do is write them both underneath the square root sign, and you're just going to divide these two numbers by each other as well. And same thing, if they have coefficients, you're still just going to divide your two coefficients together. So a divided by b is going to be a divided by b, which will end up being a number. Or you could usually might leave it as a simplified fraction as well. And if you have the square root of x divided by the square root of y, it's just the same as the square root of those two numbers divided by each other as well. Now, occasionally you are going to be using the distributive law. Now, if surds aren't quite your thing yet, I have got a video on the distributive law just with x's and y's and single numbers that you might find it a bit easier to have a look at. But I will be doing a couple of examples using this rule. So just a quick recap. Distributive law, you multiply this number in front of your bracket by each of the terms inside. So a times b is ab, and you're going to be adding it to a times c, which is just ac. Now in all these questions, what you need to make sure you do is you simplify your surds right at the end. So they need to be in simplest form all the time. So I'll do a couple of examples. Start off with some easy ones. So square root of 7 times the square root of 3 is going to be the square root of 7 times 3, which is 21. Now, I can't simplify this. I can't break it up into any square numbers, so that one's complete. The next one, sometimes we're going to have coefficients. So multiply coefficients first. So 2 times 1 is just 2, and then we'll deal with the actual surd. So 5 times 15 is going to give us 75. And then we've just got to check and see if this can be simplified. So I can break 75 up into a square number, because I can change that to 25 times 3. So it's going to be the square. It's going to be 2 multiplied by the square root of 25 times the square root of 3. I'll put a little times here as well. Now we can break down that square root of 25 into 5. So it's going to be 2 times 5 times square root of 3. And then we'll just multiply our 2 and 5 together. So that's going to give us 10 root 3, which is in the simplified form. Now, sometimes you're going to have negatives, and it's just the same rules that you normally apply to negative numbers. So we'll do the coefficients first. So a positive times a negative is a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. And then we'll deal with the square root. So that's going to be the square root of 10 times 25, which is 250. Now 250, we can break that up into 25 times 10. So it's going to be negative 4 multiplied by square root of 25 times the square root of 10. The square root of 25 is just 5, so it's going to be negative 4 times 5 times the square root of 10, and then we'll just multiply our numbers together. So negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, and we'll have the square root of 10, and I can't break down that square root of 10 any further. Alright, next ones, we'll do some division. Now, it's not written in the form that we wrote the rule before, so I'm going to change that first. So it's going to be the square root of 33 divided by the square root of 11. And all I need to do is write the 33 divided by 11 underneath the square root. So it's going to be big square root of 33 divided by 11. And then I'm just going to do 33 divided by 11, which is going to give me 3. So I'm going to be left with the square root of 3. Next one. Now the numbers aren't written here, but just remember there's a number 1 in front of both of those. So it's going to be negative 1 divided by 1, which is going to end up giving me a negative because a negative divided by a positive is a negative. 1 divided by 1 is just 1, so I'm just going to leave that there. And then I'll combine these two together, so it's going to be negative square root of 50 divided by 10. I'm just going to bring it up here. And then I'm going to process the 50 divided by 10, so it's going to end up equaling negative 50 divided by 10 is 5, so my answer is negative root 5. Do another one with 2 coefficients. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to simplify. I'm going to break it up first, actually. So it's going to be 6 divided by 3, square root of 14 divided by 7. And then I'm just going to calculate 6 divided by 3, because that's going to be 2. And underneath the square root, we've got 14 divided by 7, which is 2 as well, which is also in simplified form. Now, last example is with the distributive law. So with the distributive law, we're multiplying this coefficient out the front by the first term, and then we're going to multiply this by the second term. So a negative times a positive is a negative, and then we'll deal with the square roots. So it's the square root of 5 times 11, which is a square, which is 55, and then we'll deal with this term. So negative times a positive is a negative. Root 5 times 13. Sorry, the calculator, just check. So that's going to be square root of 65. Now, neither of these things can be simplified any further, so that is going to be your final answer. Anyway, they do get a little bit more difficult, but that's the basics that'll get you going. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.